What if the oldest Bible on earth, a Bible with 81 books, preserved in a language older than Latin, older than the English tongue, older than the Roman Church that tried to define the canon? What if that Bible carried a signal that every major Western translation had lost? My name is Dallas James. I am the principal researcher at Heart's Two Fathers Publishing and the translator of the Urim Thummim version, the UTV, a complete English translation of 32,356 verses from the Hebrew and Aramaic Masoretic text. And today I am going to show you the results of a signal strength test that has never been run before. For years, I have tested the UTV against the major English translations, the King James, the ESV, the NIV, the NASB, measuring how much of the original theological signal survives the journey from Hebrew into English. The results have been consistent. The UTV preserves what the others fracture. But this time I replaced one of those translations. I took the King James Version out of the lineup, and I put the Ethiopian Bible in its place. The Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Bible. 81 books. The largest biblical canon in all of Christendom. Translated not from the Latin Vulgate, not from the Greek critical texts that dominate Western scholarship, but from Ge'ez, an ancient Semitic language that carried scripture into the highlands of Ethiopia 16 centuries ago. A Bible that includes the Book of Enoch. A Bible that includes the Book of Jubilees. A Bible that the Western Church tried to forget. I wanted to know, does the Ethiopian Bible carry the signal? Here is what I measured. I selected 10 landmark verses spanning the entire biblical canon, from Genesis to Revelation, from the Torah to the prophets, from the Gospels to the Epistles, and critically, from 1st Enoch and Jubilees. Texts that exist in both the UTV and the Ethiopian canon but are completely absent from the ESV, the NIV, and the NASB. Each verse was scored on 4 sub-indices, 25 points each, 100 points maximum per verse, 1,000 points maximum across the entire test. The 4 sub-indices are: divine name preservation. Does the translation retain YHWH, Elohim, El Elyon? Dominion vocabulary density. Does it preserve the covenant, inheritance, priesthood, and kingdom language that forms the dominion triad? Technical clarity. Does it maintain the precision of priestly and prophetic terminology? And semantic fidelity. How close does the English stay to the source text without smoothing away the architecture? Here are the results. Out of 1,000 possible points. Number 1. The UTV. 927. Number 2. The Ethiopian Bible. 725. Number 3. The NASB. 550. Number 4. The ESV. 521. Number 5. The NIV. 451. Let those numbers settle for a moment. The Ethiopian Bible did not just edge past the Western translations. It demolished them. It outscored the NASB by 175 points. It outscored the ESV by 204 points. It outscored the NIV by 274 points. The gap between the Ethiopian Bible and the nearest Western translation is wider than the gap between the NASB and the NIV. The Ethiopian Bible is the second strongest signal carrier among all 5 translations tested. And there are 2 reasons for that, one structural, one linguistic. The structural reason is canonical breadth. When I tested 1st Enoch chapter 1, verses 1 through 3, the words of the blessing of Enoch, how he blessed the elect and the righteous, the Ethiopian Bible scored 80 out of 100. The ESV scored 0. The NIV scored 0. The NASB scored 0. They scored 0 because those verses do not exist in their canon. The Western Church removed them. The same happened with Jubilees chapter 2, the passage about the angels of the presence and the angels of sanctification keeping the Sabbath with YHWH Elohim in heaven and on earth. Ethiopian Bible, 80. ESV, NIV, NASB, 0, 0, 0. Those 2 passages alone account for 160 points of signal that the Western canon simply cannot access. The Ethiopian Orthodox tradition preserved what the rest of Christendom discarded. And the data tells us that what they preserved was not peripheral. It was not marginal. It was signal-dense. It carried the dominion triad, identity, inheritance, and priesthood, in concentrations that rival the densest passages of the Torah. But the Ethiopian Bible is not perfect. Its primary signal deficit, the reason it scores 202 points below the UTV, is divine name preservation. The GEZ text uses the compound title Exeoba, Lord of the Land. It is a theologically rich title. It is a Semitic construction. But it is not YHWH. It does not carry the covenantal specificity of the Tetragrammaton. And it does not distinguish between Elohim as a functional title and YHWH as the personal covenant name. The UTV preserves that distinction in every verse where it appears. When the Hebrew says YHWH, the UTV says YHWH. When it says Elohim, the UTV says Elohim. When it says El Elyon, as it does in the Melchizedek passage of Hebrews 7, the UTV says El Elyon. The Ethiopian Bible, the ESV, the NIV, and the NASB all translate those names out. They flatten the architecture. And in doing so, they lose signal. So what does this test tell us? It tells us that the Ethiopian Orthodox tradition has been carrying something extraordinary for 1600 years. A broader canon. A deeper textual memory. A signal footprint that dwarfs the Western translations we grew up with. And it tells us that the UTV, built directly from the Masoretic Hebrew, preserving the divine names, mapping the Dominion Triad across 32,000 verses, remains the strongest signal carrier in the English-speaking world. 927 out of 1,000. No other translation comes close. But I want you to hear something in these numbers that goes beyond competition. The Ethiopian Bible and the UTV agree far more often than they disagree. On Exodus 19, the Kingdom of Priests passage, they both preserve the Dominion Triad intact. On Psalm 2, the decree of the Son and the inheritance of the nations, they both carry the signal. On Revelation 1:6, kings and priests to his Elohim and Father, the Ethiopian reading actually amplifies the royal priestly identity by rendering it as individual kings and priests. The signal is there. It has always been there. The question has never been whether Scripture speaks with one voice across millennia. The question is whether the translation you are reading lets you hear it. The Ethiopian Bible hears more of it than any Western translation on the market. The UTV hears all of it. And now you have the data to see for yourself. This is Dallas James. Heart's Two Fathers Publishing. Royal Levitical Priesthood Ministry. The signal is alive. It is measurable. And it is waiting to be heard.